Imagine holding a single 50-cent coin in your hand and realizing that this quiet piece of metal carries the weight of American history, politics, culture, and changing times. And today we dive deep into the full, untold professional story of the 1994 Kennedy half-dollar, a coin that most people overlook, yet one that perfectly reflects the state of the United States at the end of the 20th century. This is not just a coin story, this is a journey through power, memory, economics, and survival in a world that was rapidly changing when the 1994 half-dollar was struck. America was standing at a crossroads. The Cold War was over. The internet age was just beginning. Inflation had reshaped everyday life, and cash was slowly losing its dominance. Yet the Kennedy half-dollar continued to exist, not because people demanded it, but because history demanded it. This coin traces its roots back to tragedy in 1963, when President John F. Kennedy was assassinated, shocking the nation and forcing the United States Mint to act quickly to honor a fallen leader. The Kennedy half-dollar was born in 1964 as a symbol of unity, grief, and national pride, and from that moment forward, every Kennedy half-dollar carried emotional value beyond its face. Value as decades passed, silver was removed, designs stayed strong, and public usage declined. But the coin never disappeared. By the time 1994 arrived, the Kennedy half-dollar was no longer a daily spender. Instead, it had become a quiet survivor produced mainly for collectors and government needs. In 1994, the United States Mint struck Kennedy half-dollars at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints with millions produced, yet very few actually circulated heavily because vending machines, cash registers, and wallets had moved on. This makes the 1994 half-dollar a strange contradiction. A high mintage coin that feels rare in everyday life, struck during the Clinton administration at a time when America was focused on economic growth, global leadership, and technological expansion. The design remained unchanged, with Gilroy Roberts' powerful left-facing portrait of Kennedy on the obverse, symbolizing strength, youth, and lost potential, while the reverse, designed by Frank Gasparo, shows the presidential seal, with the eagle shield olive branch and arrows representing peace and readiness, themes that still resonated strongly in a post-Cold War America composition-wise. The 1994 half-dollar was made of copper nickel, clad over a pure copper core, a reminder that precious metals were no longer part of everyday coinage. Yet collectors still valued the craftsmanship. Strike quality and historical continuity of the series condition plays a major role in the value of these coins today, because most were stored rather than circulated. Mint state examples, especially those with strong luster-clean fields and sharp details, are where collector interest truly rises. Proof versions struck at the San Francisco Mint in 1994 were specially made for collectors, featuring mirror-like fields, frosted devices, and superior quality, representing the highest standard of modern U.S. coin production. These proof coins were never meant for pockets, they were meant for preservation and legacy. The 1994 Kennedy half-dollar also tells the story of a denomination fighting relevance. Half-dollars once symbolized prosperity and generosity. But by the 1990s, they were too large for convenience, too unfamiliar for the public, and slowly pushed aside by quarters and dollar bills. Yet the Kennedy half-dollar survived, not because it was needed, but because it mattered emotionally. Historically and symbolically for collectors, this year represents a modern-era coin that still connects directly to one of the most powerful figures in American history, making it accessible yet meaningful, affordable yet historic, and overlooked yet important. When you study the 1994 Kennedy half-dollar closely, you are not just studying a coin. You are studying the story of how America remembers its leaders, how money evolves with society, and how even forgotten denominations continue to carry stories waiting to be told. This coin stands as a time capsule from the 1990s, a bridge between old traditions and a digital future. A reminder that even in an age of credit cards and online banking, a simple $50 can still speak volumes. And as you watch this video and listen to this story, you will never look at the 1994 Kennedy $50 the same way again. Because once you understand its history, its purpose, and its place in American coinage, you realize that this quiet coin is not ordinary at all. It is a survivor, a memorial, and a piece of living history that deserves attention, respect, and a closer look. As we continue deeper into the story of the 1994 Kennedy $50, we have to understand what was happening behind the scenes at the United States Mint during this period. Because the early 1990s were a time of quiet transition, the Mint was no longer focused on producing coins for heavy circulation, but instead balancing tradition, collector demand, and efficiency. The $50 especially became a coin produced more out of obligation than necessity. Yet every single 1994 $50 was struck with the same care, standards, and legal authority as any other denomination. And that is where its importance truly grows. Production numbers alone do not define significance. Meaning comes from context. And in 1994, the context was a nation redefining itself. The Philadelphia Mint continued its role as the backbone of American coinage, while the Denver Mint supported national supply, and together they produced millions of Kennedy $50 that year. Yet most Americans rarely saw them in daily life. This created an unusual situation where a coin was technically common but practically invisible, which is why many collectors today remember the 90s as the era when $50 disappeared from circulation. This disappearance was not accidental. Banks stopped ordering them. Businesses stopped using them and the public stopped asking for them, yet the Mint kept striking them year after year, preserving continuity in American coinage and refusing to let the denomination die. The 1994 Kennedy $50 became a symbol of endurance, a coin that existed because history demanded it, not because commerce required it. When examining strike quality, the 1994 issues often show solid detail, especially in the hairlines of Kennedy and the feathers of the eagle. However, like many modern clad coins, they can suffer from bag marks and dull luster if improperly stored, which makes high grade. Examples increasingly desirable among collectors. The search for a clean, sharply struck 1994 $50 becomes a lesson in patience and precision. And that challenge is part of what keeps modern coin collecting alive. Proof coins from 1994 deserve special attention because they represent the Mint at its finest. Each proof $50 was struck multiple times using polished dies, resulting in deep mirrored fields and frosted devices that highlight every design element. These coins were sold directly to collectors as part of annual proof sets, making them historical artifacts of how the Mint engaged with the public in the modern era. Beyond physical characteristics, the 1994 Kennedy $50 also reflects a psychological shift in how Americans viewed money during this time. Electronic payments were increasing, debit cards were becoming more common, and physical cash was slowly losing its emotional connection. Yet coins like the Kennedy $50 maintained a sense of national memory. They reminded people of leadership, optimism, and loss in a way that paper money and digital numbers could not. This emotional value is why the Kennedy series continues to attract collectors from beginners to advanced numismatists, because it blends accessibility with deep historical roots. The 1994 issue sits firmly in the modern-clad era, but it still carries the spirit of the original silver coins from the 1960s, making it a bridge between generations. Collectors often debate future value and long-term significance, and while the 1994 Kennedy $50 may not command high prices today, its importance lies in its role as a representative of a fading denomination and a changing nation. As fewer people handle physical coins each year, pieces like this become more than money. They become educational tools, artifacts, and storytellers. This coin teaches us that value is not always measured in silver content or rarity, but in continuity, symbolism, and survival through changing times. And as this journey continues, the 1994 Kennedy half-dollar stands quietly yet confidently as proof that even in the modern age, coins still matter. They still carry stories, and they still deserve to be studied, remembered, and respected. Welcome to Coins Half-Dollar, where today we open the door to a powerful forgotten chapter of American coinage. And if you think the 1995 half-dollar is just another modern coin, think again, because this single year quietly carries decades of history, changing mint policies, collector psychology, economic pressure, and the hidden story of why the Kennedy half-dollar slowly disappeared from everyday American life. And as this story unfolds, you will see how a coin born from national tragedy evolved into a symbol of transition, survival, and quiet rarity. And the moment you understand the 1995 half-dollar, you will never look at pocket change the same way again, because this coin stands at the crossroads between circulation and collection, between public memory and mint reality, and between what Americans once used every day and what they slowly let fade away. The 1995 Kennedy half-dollar was struck more than 30 years after the assassination of President John Fitzgerald Kennedy, an event that shocked the United States and led to the fastest coin redesign in American history, transforming the Franklin half-dollar into the Kennedy design almost overnight by 1964. And while early Kennedy half-dollars were hoarded for their silver content and emotional value by the mid-1990s, the story had changed completely because silver was long gone, public demand had collapsed, and the half-dollar had quietly vanished from cash registers across the nation. In 1995, the United States Mint produced Kennedy half-dollars at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, primarily for Federal Reserve storage and collector demand, rather than for everyday use. And this single fact alone explains why so many Americans today have never seen one in circulation. The Philadelphia Mint struck the 1995 half-dollar without a mint mark, continuing a tradition dating back to the earliest days of U.S. coinage, while the Denver Mint added its familiar D-mint mark, creating a parallel issue that collectors would later compare for strike quality and availability. And while millions were technically produced, the real story lies in how few ever reached the public. The economic climate of the mid-1990s played a major role. Inflation had reshaped coin usage. Vending machines favored smaller denominations, and retailers had little interest in half-dollars that slowed transactions, so banks stopped ordering them. And when banks stop ordering coins, circulation quietly ends even when a denomination remains officially alive. The design of the 1995 Kennedy half-dollar stayed true to Gilroy Roberts' iconic obverse portrait of President Kennedy facing left with a calm, determined expression that had become one of the most recognizable faces in American numismatics, while the reverse, designed by Frank Gasparro, continued to display the presidential seal with the heraldic eagle shield stars and olive branch symbolizing strength, peace, and continuity. And by 1995, this design had become less a daily object and more a historical emblem. The metal composition of the 1995 half-dollar tells another important chapter, made of copper-nickel-clad layers bonded to a pure copper core. This coin represented the modern era, far removed from the silver-rich past that once made half-dollars valuable in bullion terms, and yet for collectors, this clad composition marked a different kind of value, a snapshot of American monetary evolution. The minting quality of 1995 issues is a topic that continues to attract collector attention, because while these coins were not intended for heavy circulation, many were struck with strong detail, especially those preserved in mint sets and uncirculated rolls, and today high-grade examples with sharp strikes, clean fields, and minimal contact marks can stand out dramatically compared to circulated survivors. The proof version struck at the San Francisco Mint adds another layer of depth to the 1995 story because proof half-dollars were created specifically for collectors using polished dies and planchets, resulting in mirrored fields, and frosted devices, and these proofs capture the Kennedy design in its most refined form, serving as a contrast to the utilitarian nature of circulation strikes. The broader historical importance of the 1995 half-dollar lies in what it represents: a denomination officially alive yet practically absent, a coin that survived not through daily use but through institutional momentum and collector interest. And this makes it a perfect symbol of how American coinage adapts not by dramatic announcements but by quiet shifts in demand, production, and public habit. When collectors study the 1995 half-dollar today, they are not just examining a single year, they are examining the midpoint of a long decline in circulation usage and the early foundation of modern roll hoarding, mint set collecting, and conditional rarity. And this is why pristine examples graded at the highest levels command attention, because they survived an era when most people simply ignored the denomination. The story of the 1995 Kennedy half-dollar is also the story of memory, because Kennedy as a symbol never faded, even as the coin bearing his image did, and this emotional connection continues to fuel interest from new collectors who see the half-dollar not just as money, but as history they can hold. And when you place the 1995 half-dollar into the broader Kennedy series, it becomes a quiet but essential chapter linking the emotionally charged silver years to the modern collector-focused era. And without understanding this year, you cannot fully understand how the half-dollar transitioned from a daily necessity to a niche treasure. And as we continue deeper into this series, you will discover varieties, strike differences, storage practices, and collector behavior that turn this seemingly ordinary coin into a powerful educational tool for understanding American numismatics at the end of the 20th century. And this is why the 1995 Kennedy half-dollar deserves. Why the 1995 Kennedy half-dollar deserves attention, respect, and a place in every serious collection, because sometimes the most important coins are not the loudest or the rarest, but the ones that quietly mark the moment everything changed, where every piece of metal has a voice. And today we are opening the door to the powerful, often misunderstood, and deeply symbolic 1996 United States half-dollar, a coin that many people have spent without a second thought. Yet it quietly carries the weight of American history, politics, culture, and change. This is not just a story about a coin. It is a story about a nation standing at the edge of a new era as the 20th century moved toward its dramatic close. The year 1996 placed America in a moment of reflection and anticipation. The Cold War was history, the internet was entering homes, music, sports, and pop culture were exploding, and the United States Mint was striking coins that reflected stability, tradition, and continuity. The half-dollar, bearing the enduring image of President John F. Kennedy, stood as a reminder of unity and loss, hope and strength and national memory. The 1996 half-dollar was produced at a time when half-dollars were no longer common in everyday circulation, yet they were still being minted faithfully year after year, preserving a legacy that began in 1964, just months after the assassination of President Kennedy. The coin itself features the instantly recognizable portrait of Kennedy on the obversa design created by Gilroy Roberts that captures both youth and resolve, a calm forward gaze that symbolized optimism for generations. The reverse, designed by Frank Gasparo, displays the presidential seal with an eagle clutching arrows and an olive branch representing military strength and peace, a balance that defined much of America's identity in the late 20th century. The 1996 half-dollar was struck in both Philadelphia and Denver, with a special proof version struck in San Francisco intended for collectors rather than circulation. These coins were composed of copper nickel-clad layers, unlike the silver versions of the 1960s, marking the long transition from precious metal coinage to modern alloy currency. Yet even without silver, the coin held immense symbolic value because it represented continuity in an age of rapid technological and social change. Production numbers tell an important story. Millions of 1996 half-dollars were minted, yet very few entered daily commerce by this time. Vending Machines, cash registers, and banks had largely moved away from the half-dollar, favoring smaller denominations. This made the coin feel almost ceremonial, a piece of history struck for tradition rather than necessity. Collectors noticed this shift, and many began saving rolls straight from the bank, meaning that high-grade examples of the 1996 half-dollar are surprisingly common yet still meaningful because they capture a frozen moment in time, the proof. Versions, especially those with deep cameo contrast, showcase the minting technology at its finest mirror, like fields, frosted devices, and exceptional detail, turning a simple circulating design into a work of art. The year 1996 itself adds another layer of importance. America was celebrating the approach of a new millennium. The Olympic Games were held in Atlanta, and national pride was high. The half-dollar quietly mirrored that confidence, standing as a reminder of past leadership and shared national values. While the world prepared for the future collectors today, look at the 1996 half-dollar. Not as a rare treasure, but as a historical document. A coin that tells the story of how money evolved, how public memory is preserved through design, and how even overlooked coins can hold deep meaning for those willing to look closer. This is why the 1996 half-dollar matters, because it bridges the gap between old and new, between silver and clad, between circulation and collection, between memory and progress. And as you hold this coin or even just study its image, you are holding a chapter of American history, one that speaks softly but powerfully about where the nation had been and where it believed it was going. And this is only the beginning, because the deeper you go into the Kennedy half-dollar series, the more stories you uncover, stories of politics, artistry, economics, and culture, all struck into metal, waiting for someone like you to truly see them. As we move deeper into the story of the 1996 half-dollar, it becomes clear that this coin represents far more than its face value, because by the mid-1990s, the half-dollar had already become a symbol of change in American spending habits. Once a workhorse of everyday transactions, it slowly faded from wallets and cash drawers. Yet the United States Mint continued to strike it year after year, honoring tradition rather than demand this. Quiet persistence says a great deal about how America values its past. The Kennedy half-dollar was never just another denomination. It was born from national tragedy and instantly embraced by the public in 1964, when millions were hoarded as keepsakes, and that emotional connection never truly disappeared. By 1996, the coin had evolved into something almost ceremonial, produced for collectors, institutions, and those who still believed in the power of physical money to carry memory and meaning. The minting process itself reflected the technological progress of the era. Advanced presses, improved dyes, and stricter quality control resulted in sharper strikes, cleaner fields, and more consistent details, especially on the hairlines of Kennedy and the feathers of the eagle. These improvements are why many 1996 half-dollars appear exceptionally well-made even decades later, and why high-grade examples can still be found today, untouched and brilliant. The edge of the coin, with its smooth copper core, sandwiched between nickel layers, tells the story of modern coinage efficiency, durability, and cost control, a far cry from the heavy silver pieces of earlier decades, yet still engineered to last generations beyond its physical characteristics. The 1996 half-dollar also reflects the economic mood of the time the United States was experiencing: relative stability, inflation was controlled, and confidence in the dollar was. Strong coins were no longer viewed as stores of metal value, but as tools of trust backed by the full faith of the nation. This shift is clearly visible in the Kennedy half-dollar of 1996, which relied entirely on symbolism, design, and legacy, rather than intrinsic metal. Worth collectors often study subtle variations in strike quality, luster, and toning on these coins, searching for exceptional pieces that stand out from the millions produced. Proof examples from San Francisco offer another dimension with their flawless surfaces and presentation packaging, making them popular among both new and seasoned collectors. These proofs were never meant for circulation. They were crafted as displays of mint excellence and remain pristine time capsules of the year. They were made. The 1996 half dollar also serves as an educational gateway coin, introducing many collectors to the broader world of numismatics because it is affordable, accessible, and historically rich. It encourages deeper exploration into earlier silver issues, special mint sets, and key date varieties. While it may not command high prices, its true value lies in its ability to connect people to history, to spark curiosity, and to preserve a national narrative in metal. As digital payments began their rise in the late 90s, the half dollar stood as a reminder of a tactile era when money was held, felt, and passed hand to hand. Each coin carried marks of circulation or the promise of preservation, and the 1996 issue sits right at that turning point, making it an essential chapter in the story of American coinage. And as we continue this journey, we begin to understand that the real power of the 1996 half dollar is not rarity or silver content, but its role as a witness to change, a silent observer of a nation moving forward while still honoring the image of a president whose legacy remains deeply woven into the fabric of the United States. In the world of American coinage, the 1984 Kennedy half dollar stands as a silent witness to a changing era, a coin shaped by tradition, patriotism, and the enduring story of President John F. Kennedy. And as we dive into its powerful history, you will discover how this single year of mintage reflects decades of economic policy, cultural preservation, and the evolution of the United States Mint. The 1984 half dollar is more than a 50-cent piece. It is a symbol of stability during a time when Americans were shifting away from carrying half dollars in daily commerce, and though the coin circulated less frequently, it continued the legacy that began in 1964. When the nation mourned the tragic loss of President Kennedy and honored him by placing his portrait on the half dollar, this decision transformed the denomination forever, and by the time 1984 arrived, the Kennedy half dollar had already grown into an American icon representing national pride and enduring respect for a fallen leader. In 1984, the coin was minted at two primary facilities, the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint, each producing millions of examples in copper nickel-clad composition, a change that had begun in 1971 when silver was removed due to rising metal costs. Even though the 1984 half dollar was not struck for everyday high-volume circulation, the mint continued to produce it for collectors, banks, and federal inventory, maintaining its role as an essential part of U.S. coinage. It carried the powerful left-facing portrait of John F. Kennedy, designed by Gilroy Roberts, whose sculpting captured both strength and sorrow, and created one of the most recognizable coin portraits in American history. On the reverse, Frank Gasparo's heraldic eagle design projected power and patriotism with its shield olive branch and arrows symbolizing the balance of peace and defense in the American spirit. The year 1984 itself marked an interesting chapter. The United States was experiencing economic recovery, technological advancements, and cultural shifts, yet the half dollar remained an anchor of tradition. As fewer Americans used the coin in everyday transactions, the piece transitioned into a collector-focused issue, and this shift gives modern collectors a window into the evolving habits of American currency. Use the surface's mint luster and strike quality of 1984. Half dollars vary, especially between business strikes and proof strikes. Proof coins produced in San Francisco showcased deep mirrored fields and frosted devices, giving the Kennedy portrait a dramatic three-dimensional appearance. These coins were struck with extra care, multiple strikes, and highly polished dies, creating an appealing contrast. Prized by collectors today, circulated examples of the 1984 half dollar often show wear on Kennedy's hair, cheek, and jawline, while uncirculated examples reveal sharp details and consistent mint luster, making them attractive for grading and numismatic study. The coin also reflects the political and social environment of the time, with the U.S. Mint focusing on modernizing production while still honoring historical legacies. The decision to continue producing the Kennedy half dollar despite declining circulation, illustrates the cultural significance attached to the design, proving that coins are not just tools of commerce, but symbols of memory, honor, and identity. The 1984 half-dollar also stands as a reminder of how mintages adjusted to public use patterns with lower demand compared to prior decades. Mint output scaled accordingly, giving this year a different character in the broader timeline of Kennedy. Half-dollars collectors today seek variations in strike quality, potential errors, planchet issues, and mint mark anomalies, including off-center strikes, die cracks, and weak strikes, which occasionally surface in 1984, pieces each telling its own micro-story about what happened on the minting floor during production. And as you explore this coin for a 2-hour video, you can break down each, telling its own micro-story about what happened on the minting floor during production. And as you explore this coin for a 2-hour video, you can break down each aspect of its creation, its design evolution, its historical setting, and its role in modern collecting, weaving together the story of a nation and a coin that continues to carry the legacy of a president who inspired millions. And even though 1984 may seem like an ordinary mintage year, the half-dollar serves as a time capsule of American history, mint craftsmanship, and national memory, allowing collectors to hold a piece of the past in the palm of their hand, and reminding us of the enduring respect the country has for President John F. Kennedy, whose legacy lives on not in speeches or monuments alone, but in the quiet, powerful presence of every Kennedy half-dollar ever struck. Family stories making the 1984 half-dollar a vessel of shared history and lasting emotional meaning. Collectors who approach the 1984 half-dollar today often examine it under bright light to study its fields, luster hair details, and eagle feathers. These small elements reveal whether the coin was a crisp, uncirculated strike or a circulated piece that passed through countless hands. Each tiny line dent and softening of detail is a clue that helps build a deeper story about the life of that particular coin. Some 1984 half-dollars survived in exceptional condition, especially those preserved in mint sets and proof sets, and these coins show the full beauty of the engravings, while circulated pieces reveal the realistic journey of American currency. The modern grading community views the 1984 half-dollar as an accessible collectible, but still pays close attention to strike sharpness, surface cleanliness, and minting anomalies, because small imperfections like die polish lines, weak hair details, or slight doubling can create notable interest among collectors. Era varieties of 1984 half-dollars add another layer of fascination. Sometimes a die crack cuts across Kennedy's neck or travels along the rim, capturing a moment when mint machinery was under stress, occasionally off-center. Strikes reveal how a planchet was misaligned, producing a dramatic visual error that collectors search for. Even clipped planchets, where a small portion of the coin is missing, occur when metal strip feeding is not perfectly aligned. Every era variety carries a unique identity and contributes to the overall story of 1984. Minting history. Understanding this coin requires also understanding the world. It was born into the United States in 1984, was experiencing economic strength supported by technological progress, expansion of consumer electronics, and growing confidence in the marketplace. Yet traditional coins like the half-dollar were quietly stepping back from everyday life, replaced by growing reliance on paper money and smaller denominations. This cultural transition makes the 1984 half-dollar a fascinating relic because it represents one of the later periods where the denomination still mattered enough for regular yearly production, even though circulation demand was steadily declining. The coin therefore becomes a symbol of the last strong decades of the Kennedy half-dollar before significant drop-offs in later years. And as we journey deeper into its story, the Kennedy half-dollar reflects not only history, but craftsmanship, pride, and a shared national memory woven into every strike of 1984. Imagine holding a coin that carries the weight of American history in its metal, a coin that has witnessed the aftermath of one of the most defining decades in the United States, and a coin that quietly moved through the hands of millions Without anyone realizing how many secrets it actually holds today, we dive into the 1980 half-dollar, a coin that seems ordinary at first glance. But once you start uncovering its story, you realize you are looking at the living memory of a nation and a silent treasure that many collectors still underestimate. And that is exactly why this coin can surprise you, change your perspective, and even change your entire coin collecting journey. Because behind this coin lies a history of political transitions, monetary transformations, design legacies, production mysteries, and collector value twists that make the 1980 half-dollar one of the most fascinating stops in the American numismatic timeline. And in the next 2 hours, you will hear the complete deep professional history of this coin, from its earliest roots to the smallest production detail. So sit back, get ready, and let's enter the world of the 1980 half-dollar. The story of the 1980 half-dollar cannot begin in 1980, because its foundation was set decades earlier with the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in 1963, an event that shocked the entire nation and led to one of the fastest design adoptions in U.S. coin history. The Kennedy half-dollar entered circulation in 1964, the very next year, as both a national tribute and a symbol of unity and hope. The early versions contained 90% silver, and Americans hoarded them instantly, creating a scarcity that pushed the U.S. Mint to change compositions again and again, eventually leading to the modern era with the copper nickel-clad design, which is what the 1980 half-dollar is made of. But even though the composition changed, the design stayed as a permanent tribute to Kennedy, with each year revealing small stylistic shifts, minting differences and production challenges that shaped its future. As the United States moved into the late 1970s, the national economy was under pressure, inflation was rising, and consumer trust in circulating coinage was changing. People were keeping half-dollars at home instead of using them in daily spending. Businesses stopped placing them in registers, and by 1980, the half-dollar was already on its way out of common circulation. But the U.S. Mint still had a mission, and that mission was to keep producing the coin to maintain continuity and preserve the Kennedy legacy, even if the public rarely used it. So the 1980 half-dollar became part of a strange era, a coin produced for circulation, but almost never seen in circulation, making it a hidden collectible from the moment it was minted. The year 1980 was important for the Mint because it marked a phase of modernization, production expansions, and technological improvements, and the half-dollar benefited from all of this. The Philadelphia Mint produced millions. The Denver Mint added its share, and each mint location left subtle differences in strike sharpness, rim thickness, mint mark positioning, and overall luster. The Philadelphia coins carried no mint mark, while the Denver coins proudly displayed the D mark, and both mints faced the challenge of keeping strike quality high. Even though the coin was losing public circulation demand, it was a coin created more for systemic continuity than commercial usage. And that makes the 1980 half-dollar historically unique. When you look at the front of the 1980 half-dollar, the design features Kennedy in a left-facing portrait, an iconic image symbolizing strength, dignity, and national unity. The profile is sharp with deep contours that reflect the sculpting style of late 20th century mint artistry. The inscriptions, Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date. 1980 complete the portrait. The details on Kennedy's hair, forehead, and jawline vary depending on strike pressure, die wear, and production batch, making some coins noticeably sharper and more desirable to advanced collectors. The reverse shows the presidential coat of arms with the heraldic eagle holding arrows and an olive branch surrounded by 50 stars, a breathtaking patriotic design by Frank Gasparro that carries hidden symbolism representing both strength and peace. The symmetry is precise, the lines are detailed, and the 1980 reverse is known for being well struck in many batches, though some weaker strikes do exist, and those subtle differences matter greatly when grading. As the 1980s began, half-dollars were produced in large quantities, yet remained barely used by the public vending. Machines did not accept them. Banks rarely circulated them, and most Americans simply preferred quarters. So many 1980 half dollars went directly into storage, sat wrapped in mint bags, or ended up untouched in bank vaults for years. This is why today collectors often find 1980 half dollars in surprisingly strong condition, because they were never heavily circulated. And this unusual storage history is what created a semi-preserved generation of Kennedy half dollars, forming a fascinating chapter in numismatic study. Grading plays a huge role in understanding the 1980 half dollar because the value can shift dramatically based on condition. A coin in average circulated condition may not be worth much, but a coin in mint state with strong luster and clean fields can become highly desirable, especially if it carries sharp details on Kennedy's hair and clean mirrored surfaces on the reverse. Some specimens graded MS-65, MS-66, and higher stand out, because not many half dollars from this era were preserved perfectly, despite low circulation levels. Environmental exposure, bag marks, and handling friction still affected many coins, and the highest grade examples are challenging to find. Collectors today chase varieties, errors, mint mark differences, and die characteristics from the 1980 half dollar. Some coins show die chips, die cracks, doubled elements, rim anomalies, or faint strike weakness that gives them additional personality error. Coins from 1980 include off-center strikes, broad strikes, partial collar strikes clashed, dies, and missing design elements, and these pieces instantly transform into valuable collectibles because they capture a rare moment in the minting process. They are snapshots of a mechanical mistake preserved forever in metal, and the 1980 half-dollar error market remains one of the most underrated in the Kennedy series. The global value of the 1980 half dollar continues to grow slowly because collectors around the world have developed a deep fascination for the Kennedy series, driven by historical symbolism, political significance, and iconic design. And because the coin is no longer seen in daily use, it has become a nostalgic collectible. Representing an era of American culture that has passed the coin is now part of history rather than commerce, and that emotional connection is what brings collectors back to it generation after generation. The 1980 half dollar is also deeply connected to national memory through the story of President Kennedy, his legacy, and the era that followed his presidency. The coin is not just currency, but a cultural artifact reflecting hope, tragedy, and the American spirit. The continued production of the half dollar long after the public stopped using it represents dedication to preserving history and honoring one of the most influential leaders of the modern era. And this symbolic power keeps the series alive even today. As we move deeper into the story of the 1980 half dollar, we explore its place in the coin market, its evolving collector interest, its international popularity, its minting challenges, and its hidden design features. And as this 2-hour journey continues, you will see exactly why the 1980 half dollar is not just another year in the Kennedy series, but a milestone coin representing transition, innovation, and national resilience. And by the end, you will understand this coin in a way that brings new appreciation to its beauty, its story. And as we move deeper into the world of the 1972 Kennedy half dollar, we uncover the layers of meaning that shaped this coin into a lasting symbol of American identity, because every coin ever minted is a reflection of the era it was born into. And the 1972 half dollar stands right at the heart of a nation, balancing memory, tradition, change, and modern economic realities. This coin captures the essence of the early 70s, a period filled with social transformation, technological innovation, and political tension the country had witnessed, protests, war victories, space achievements, and cultural shifts. And into this complex landscape, the Kennedy half dollar continued to serve as a reminder of unity and leadership, representing the hope that President John F. Kennedy once embodied the decision to maintain the Kennedy design, even after several years of circulation was not just artistic, but deeply emotional. The American public connected with the design, and the mint understood that removing it would feel like erasing a national tribute. Therefore, the 1972 half-dollar became part of the living memory of a nation carrying forward the ideals of courage, progress, and national pride beyond symbolism. The technical side of the 1972 half-dollar tells its own story, and it is a story of precision machinery evolving, minting technology, and relentless production schedules at the United States Mint facilities. Each coin began as a simple metal strip, a copper core sandwiched between two layers of nickel. These metal sheets were rolled, pressed, and cut with meticulous accuracy. The planchets were punched out like metal circles waiting to become currency, and as they moved through the striking chambers, the powerful coin presses delivered thousands of pounds of pressure, imprinting the bold portrait of Kennedy and the majestic presidential eagle on the reverse. But with such speed and immense pressure came imperfections, and it is these imperfections that today create some of the most intriguing and valuable examples of the 1972 half-dollar collectors' search for doubled dies, repunched mint marks, die cracks, clipped planchets, and off-center strikes. Each error revealing the reality of mint work, where machines operated around the clock and workers battled deadlines while maintaining quality consistency for the millions of coins needed by the economy. The 1972 half-dollar proof coins created at the San Francisco Mint stand on their own level, representing craftsmanship beyond ordinary circulation. These proofs were hand-prepared using polished dies and specially treated planchets, creating mirror-like surfaces and frosted details that glow under any light. Each proof was struck multiple times to ensure perfection. And these coins were never intended for everyday use. They were meant for collectors, historians, and those who understood the significance of preserving American heritage in its purest form. And when examining the value of the 1972 half-dollar, it becomes clear that its worth extends beyond simple monetary measurement. Its value rests in rarity, condition, and historical context. Pristine examples with sharp strikes and clean surfaces become prized possessions, while coins with dramatic mint errors transform into unique artifacts that capture the hidden world behind the mint walls. But the real power of this coin lies not just in its metal or design, but in the journey it took across the nation. Imagine the hands that held the 1972 half-dollar, the cashier at a small-town diner, the soldier paying for a bus ticket, the young student saving coins in a jar, the family using change to buy groceries. Each coin carried stories, moments, memories. And today, when collectors hold a 1972 half-dollar, they hold those memories too, a silent witness to American life in the 70s. This coin traveled through decades, surviving recessions, technological changes, and the rise of digital payment systems. Yet it remains a symbol of physical currency, a reminder of the time when every coin had weight, presence, and meaning. And as your viewers dive further into this 2-hour exploration, they will discover that the 1972 half-dollar is not simply a collectible item. It is a historical messenger and a cultural symbol. It marks the continuation of the Kennedy legacy, the evolution of American minting, the transition toward modern non-silver coinage, and the resilience of national identity, even through changing times, from the sculptor's vision to the mint worker's precision, from the collector's excitement to the historian's analysis. The 1972 Kennedy half-dollar stands at the crossroads of art, economy, memory, and heritage, inviting us to look deeper at a coin that millions once used daily without ever realizing the story it carried. And as we continue unfolding this journey, you will see how this single coin connects to greater themes in American history, how it influenced collecting trends, how it reflects economic shifts, and how its varieties and rare discoveries continue to surprise collectors. Today, reminding us that even the most common-looking coin may hold extraordinary secrets within its metal. Each rarity today becomes a window into the craft behind American money. The 1972 half-dollar also reflects the story of American society, the shifting economy, the cultural changes, the Vietnam era, morale, the energy of the space program, and the continuing legacy of John F. Kennedy, whose presidency remained one of the most influential in modern American memory. Owning a 1972 half-dollar is like holding a piece of the American journey, a coin, touched by the hands of workers, soldiers, students, dreamers, and everyday families across the country, from gas stations to grocery stores, from shops on Main Street to banks in small towns. This coin silently witnessed the life of the nation. And even today, collectors seek it not for its silver, but for its story and what it represents, a moment in American history when the country was changing, yet preserved its symbols of unity, courage, and leadership. The 1972 Kennedy half-dollar stands as a reminder that coins are not just currency. They are artifacts, storytellers, and timekeepers carrying the memories of a nation across generations, and that is why the legacy of the 1972 half-dollar remains powerful, enduring, and worth exploring for hours, because within its metal lies a story bigger than the coin itself, a story of America, its people, its struggles, its triumphs, and its hope for the future. And now we begin this journey through the full detailed professional history of the 1972 half-dollar, exploring every corner of its creation, its purpose, its varieties, its collector value, and the hidden truths that make this coin one of the most fascinating chapters in U.S. numismatic heritage.